It's funny, isn't it, how some figures from these old myths, they really stick around.
They do, yeah.
Become these like symbols for bigger ideas. Take Prometheus, for example. Most people, you say Prometheus, they think stole fire from the gods. End of story.
Right. The fire guy.
Exactly. But we're diving a little deeper today. We're looking at excerpts from Prometheus, the titan who defied the gods, trying to get under the surface of this whole mythical rebel thing,
Well, and that's what's so fascinating about Prometheus, right? It's not just about rebelling to rebel. It's deeper than that. The empathy this guy had, that's almost what's unimaginable. This wasn't some titan just picking aside humans over gods. It's like he saw something in humanity, this potential, this vulnerability that even the gods, they missed it somehow.
And that's where it gets really interesting, right? Because the text, it emphasizes how this empathy that he has, this wasn't just some like naive impulse, like, oh, humans, they're so helpless. This was thought out. Prometheus knew what would happen. He knew the price of stealing that fire.
Oh, absolutely. There's this one passage that describes his internal struggle, this tension between like loyalty to the Titans and this growing compassion he had for humanity. He knew the consequences, but he also believed in a different future than the one that, say, Zeus and the other gods had planned. He thought things could be different.
And wow, that belief cost him, the punishment, what Zeus does to him every day, that torment, no escape. You can't read that and not think, what kind of empathy makes that sacrifice worth it?
It's huge, right? And that's something the text really seems to wrestle with. There's a line that just stuck with me, a testament to both the heights of compassion and the cost of defying the divine. It's like even the author's asking, did it have to be this way? Is that level of suffering, is that what real progress demands? I don't know.
So, okay, he steals the fire, knows he's going to be in agony because of it. It'd be easy to just put him in this box of martyr and be done. But the text doesn't let us do that, does it?
No, not at all. It spends a lot of time on how Prometheus thought, like how strategic he was. It's as if we're supposed to see this wasn't just him being emotional, like a screw the gods kind of thing, but a calculated move,
Yeah.
Helping humans in that moment, but also thinking way down the line, thinking of the ripple effects.
So it's less about the actual fire itself, more what it stood for, what it could enable.
Exactly. Think about it. Fire, practically speaking, that helps humans survive, right? But the text, it focuses on how fire changes humanity, the tools they make, the communities that gather around it for warmth, for light, the ideas that spread. It's like Prometheus doesn't want to just save humans, but empower them, give them a chance to become something more.
Which, when you think about it, is the real rebellion. It's not just disobeying the gods, it's like challenging the whole system. This idea that the gods have a monopoly on knowledge, on advancement, and Prometheus just breaks that.
And there's a really smart point the text makes about that. It argues that by punishing Prometheus so harshly, Zeus proves he's afraid. The gods see what humans could become with just a little spark, and it terrifies them.
Like that saying, right? The most powerful force is an idea whose time has come. It's like Prometheus planted that idea.
He did. And while we hear a lot about his physical pain, what's interesting is how the text hints at another kind of suffering he has to deal with. Like, he knows what humans are capable of. They might take this gift of fire, and they might build amazing things, but they might also destroy. That's a lot for anyone to carry around.
Man, talk about a heavy burden, even for a titan. But it does make him even more interesting, doesn't it? It's not blind faith in humanity, but this deeper understanding. Progress can be messy.
And that's where he becomes this visionary figure, which is something the text gets into more toward the end of the excerpts we have. He sees potential, both the good and the bad, the triumphs and the disasters. Maybe humans don't even realize that yet, but he does.
He's basically giving them the tools to create their own future, whatever that may be.
Exactly. And that leads to a question that we're still asking today, right? How much progress is worth it if we don't know what the consequences might be?
It's like we zoom out, and it's not so simple anymore, is it? Prometheus isn't just this rebel with a cause. He's got this weight on him, He sees the whole picture.
Yeah, it's really interesting how the story goes beyond the typical hero thing. There's a line in the text that calls Prometheus a being of fire and forethought, which I thought was cool. He does this impulsive thing, steals the fire, but he's also thinking way ahead, planning for the really long game. He knew what he was doing.
And it makes you think, what happens because of him doing that? The text talks about fire changing humanity, which is huge, but what about the gods? How does this change things for them?
Oh, for sure. I mean, before Prometheus, knowledge, progress, that's all for the gods, right? Humans weren't supposed to have that.
Yeah.
But when Prometheus gives them fire, He's giving them the ability to make their own way, to invent, to progress on their own terms. And the text even suggests that Zeus knows this is happening. That's why he's so angry.
Which is kind of ironic, right? Because how does the story end? Zeus can't even keep Prometheus chained up forever.
Right, and the text points that out. Hercules lets Prometheus go in the end. But here's the thing. He says Zeus doesn't do this because he forgives Prometheus or anything. It's like Zeus just accepts that things are different now. He can't change it back.
Like even the king of the gods can't put that genie back in the bottle. Humans are messy, they make mistakes, but now, thanks to Prometheus, they're a force to be reckoned with.
And I think that was the whole point for Prometheus. There's this line where it describes him looking out at the world, and his eyes, they have both sorrow and a spark of triumph. It's like he knew this change would happen, and he accepted the price he'd pay for it.
So the suffering he goes through, it becomes this whole other symbol, not just about standing up to the gods, but this idea that humans keep going even when things are really, really tough.
And the text doesn't shy away from that, does it? How much Prometheus suffers. It makes us think, was it worth it? Did humanity have to pay this price to move forward? I don't know. It's a tough one.
It really is. And it's a question people are still asking today about all sorts of things, not just this myth. But the text doesn't give us an answer, does it?
No, it doesn't. It's almost as if that's why this story still matters. It makes us think about the sacrifices people make for progress, for the greater good. There's that one line that always gets me. And as Prometheus hung, a symbol of both defiance and despair, humanity took its first steps towards the light, unaware of the price that had been paid for their ascent. It's haunting.
Yeah, it makes you realize that progress isn't always pretty. It's not always fair. Someone usually ends up paying the price.
And that brings us right back to Prometheus as a visionary. He knew how great humanity could be, but he also saw the potential for destruction, like fire itself, right? It can warm your home, or it can burn it down.
So he wasn't just giving humanity the means to advance, he was giving them a choice, right? Use it for good or let it destroy you.
Exactly. And that is something we're still dealing with today in all parts of life. Every new technology, every scientific discovery, it has the potential to make things better, but it could also make things a lot worse. It's a balancing act.
That's a lot to put on one titan's shoulders. But the text seems to say that Prometheus knew that was part of the deal.
It does, doesn't it? There's this part near the end where it calls him a being forever bound to the fate of humankind. It's like by choosing to help humans, he tied his fate to theirs. There's no going back from that, good or bad.
It's like he's always there, this reminder that we have this potential, this power, but we can't forget the price that was paid for it.
And that makes us ask ourselves some tough questions. What are we going to do with this gift, this fire that Prometheus gave us? Will we make him proud, or will we let him down?
Wow, now those are some heavy questions. But that's what these myths are for, right? They get us thinking about the big stuff. It's like by telling these old stories, we're forced to think about the big questions too. You know, what does progress really mean? What does it cost? What are we willing to sacrifice for it?
And it's no wonder this story about Prometheus has been around for so long, you know?
Yeah.
It gets at something really basic about being human. We love to invent new things, to push the limits, but there's always that risk, that fear of what might happen.
And Prometheus, he's right there in the middle of it, isn't he? Giving humanity fire, but also being the one who suffers when they misuse it. It's like a reminder that our choices matter. What we do affects other people, even thousands of years later.
And the text really emphasizes that near the end. It talks about how even after humanity has advanced, you know, they've got tools, they've built cities, Prometheus is still stuck there suffering. It's like we're not supposed to forget what he gave up, even when things are good.
Which brings us back to that question, doesn't it? Was there another way? Could humanity have gotten to this point without Prometheus going through all that? It doesn't feel like the text gives us a straight answer.
No, not really. And maybe that's why it's still such a powerful story. It makes you think, are some sacrifices unavoidable? Is that just the price of progress? It's not an easy thing to think about.
It really isn't. But then there's that other side of Prometheus, you know, the defiance, that unwavering belief that humans are worth it, even with all their flaws.
That's what makes him so compelling, right? He doesn't give up. He never says, I made a mistake. And the text makes it clear, this wasn't just him being optimistic. He knew what humans were capable of, the good and the bad, but he still chose to have faith in them.
So what do you think? If we had to pick one thing to take away from this whole Prometheus story, something to keep in mind as we go about our lives, what would it be?
That's a good question. Maybe it's that progress. It's not always a straight line. It's messy. It's unpredictable. And we'll have to make tough choices along the way. But like Prometheus, we've got to face those choices head on, knowing that there are risks, but there's also the potential for something amazing.
I like that. And maybe, just maybe, if we remember what Prometheus did, remember the choices he made, we'll make better choices ourselves. We'll use this gift of progress wisely, make it count for something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And isn't that the beauty of these myths? They make us think, they inspire us, and they remind us that some questions, some dilemmas, they're always going to be relevant no matter how much time passes.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Prometheus, the firebringer, the visionary, I hope this leaves you thinking about the potential and the responsibility that comes with human progress. Until next time, keep those minds curious and keep asking those big questions.